recording this. This is going to be a recorded session. So for those of you who may have coworkers that are unable to attend today's session, that's okay. We are going to be recording it and sending it out, so feel free to share it amongst yourselves or watch this at a little bit later of a time. What we're going to be covering today is how we can show you how to overhaul some different layouts that are in the account within Salesforce. Now, how we're going to be doing that is going through a live demo of two different ways of designing pages. And inside of these demos, we're going to be covering things such as how to utilize multiple columns to refactor the way the Salesforce pages are laid out, how do you use interior tabs, being able to provide searchable related lists so you can quickly find your data, and then the infamous detail panel that many of our customers have been talking about lately. And then we'll open it up for some Q&A. Now, if at any point in time you have questions, feel free to ask them in the chat panel or the question panel, and I'll do my best to address them as we go through this. But we will have a dedicated Q&A section at the end. For those of you who have ever looked at our recorded webinars in the past, you'll know that we cut out our Q&A section intentionally. So whatever questions you get asked here will not appear in the recorded session. And this is because we dive into things that sometimes break safe harbor or talk about business models and things like that. And we want to make sure that that we're respectful of everybody's dialogue as we go back and forth through the Q&A. Now, I should have one other caveat, one other disclaimer before I actually jump into this, and that is that I'm assuming many of you have either looked at our website and are familiar with the general concept of what SkyVisualEditor is and does, or have either used it personally to create some pages of your own. If you are not in either of those two categories, this particular webinar may be a bit fast-paced with some of the terminology that I utilize as I'm going through this, but just try and keep up. And like I said, if you have questions as we go through, make sure to enter them into the question panel or the chat panel. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that I'm going to do is we are going to be recreating this sample order form that I've created. This is not a real order form, it's just something for today's webinar. But if you were to try and recreate this in Salesforce, you would be looking at a very large amount of custom work that would go into producing a PDF or an order form to look like this inside of Salesforce. And so what I'd like to present is how simple it is to utilize TerraSky's SkyVisualEditor platform to reproduce a form like this, and then we're going to attach this form to the opportunity so that anytime anybody clicks on a detail panel for the opportunity, they can open this form as a quick reference to what that opportunity is about to close in terms of revenue without having to actually drill into the opportunity and then click an additional button to look at an order form. So it's going to be a quick reference for that particular account. So what we're going to do is start out in SkyVisualEditor. For those of you not familiar with it, the SkyVisualEditor platform is a design studio that is not inside of Salesforce, so it's a standalone design studio. And we've done that because we want you to be able to switch between the multiple design environments that you may have. We know that several of you are at companies where you've got multiple sandboxes, multiple developer orgs, possibly even multiple production orgs, and you should be able to switch between them and design and deploy pages very seamlessly amongst those different organizations. So how we're going to start out is by recreating that form. So we go to File, click New. There is what we call a free layout, and this is essentially the layout that's really used to design forms. You can put anything anywhere you'd want on the page, so it's perfect for recreating forms. We have to choose the object that we'd like to work with. In this case, we're going to be filling out that particular form using opportunity fields. So I choose the opportunity object, and then we're going to give this a name that makes sense. So I'm going to call this our webinar opportunity form and click OK. Now this is going to give us a completely blank canvas to work with, and that's intentional. One other thing that I'm going to do as we create this page is I want it to be a PDF so that the user can print out a PDF directly from the account page. They should be able to look at this and email it if they want or download it. It's something that's a little more tangible than just a viewing of a record. So on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a section called PDF that I've now expanded. I simply check Render as PDF. I choose the page size. We'll set that as letter, and then choose the margins that I'd like to have. I'm going to leave it in portrait for now. And then there's a button at the very bottom that says Adjust Page Size. So I can go ahead and click that. And as you notice, it automatically resized the page to fit the dimensions that you would expect on a PDF, which is exactly what I want. Next, I need to actually add the form to the page so we can begin overlaying our Salesforce fields on top of that. So I can go to the background section on the right-hand side and click the ellipsis. Now, before I actually open that, I should point out that this form that I've got here, I have actually turned the PDF into an image, and you can either do that with the professional version of Adobe or by some kind of PDF to image conversion utility tool. However you get that done is up to you, but I have converted it to an image, and I've uploaded this image to Salesforce as a static resource. And once it's available as a static resource, we then can access that static resource from SkyVisualEditor in the background section. So I can click this ellipsis, and I called this my sample order form. So I dig through all of the different forms and images and static resources I have, and I find my sample order form that's inside of Salesforce as a static resource. So I go ahead and click OK. And what this is going to do is it's going to put that order form into the Visualforce page at the normal size, the resolution of the image. And if you notice, it gets truncated. It's cut off on the right-hand side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the Fit to Page Size on the right-hand side, and then I am going to adjust this. We'll say maybe 600 on the height, make that look a little bit better. There we go. And so now we've adjusted the height so it looks a little bit better on the actual PDF itself. Next, if you notice on the left-hand side, there's a series of fields that are available for me to leverage and utilize. As a PDF, you do need to have all of your fields in display-only mode. So at the top left, we're going to click Output. And now here are all the output fields that I can place onto the canvas. So I'm going to find and just start filling out some of these fields. We'll choose something like the account name as an example, and we'll just drag that onto the canvas where the company name is. For the primary contact, this is another area where we can have, let's say, the contact. Let me see if I have primary in here. And we do. So there's primary contact. I want the full name for the primary contact, so I can scroll down, find the full name, and drag that onto the canvas. And then the title for this particular contact. I can scroll down, find the title, and drag that onto the canvas as well. And you can do the same thing for some of these others, but I think you get the point. You find the field that you need and then place it onto the canvas. Next, I'm going to place in the billing address for this particular opportunity. So I can find, let's say, street. That is going to be under the account. So if I go to the account and expand this, in here we'll have the billing street. We can place that onto the canvas. Billing city. Billing state, and the billing zip code. And I think we'll stop there, as you probably get the point of how this is going to work. You drag fields onto the appropriate spots on the canvas. Now we need to actually get this into Salesforce. To do that, we go to File, click Deploy. It's going to ask us whether we're in a sandbox or production environment, and we click Deploy. Now what this is going to do is it's going to generate all of the Visualforce code, any custom Apex extensions that need to take place, all of that background tech stuff that you may or may not understand. We're going to do all of that for you and put it into Salesforce. And once it's in Salesforce, you then can manage and assign it wherever you would like it to be used. So as this gets deployed into Salesforce, we're going to quickly switch over to the account page and begin designing the account page. And the account page is where we will reference the page that we have just created. As you can see, the deployment was successful. We can open this in Salesforce right now if we wanted, but I'm going to close this for the sake of time. Now we need to create the account page. And this one we're going to do a bit differently than creating it from scratch like we did with this form. We're going to click File and then Load Page Layout. And what this is going to do is ask us, is there an object, in this case we'll choose the account, where we have a series of record types that might exist. In my case, I only have one, so I can choose that one record type. But if you had multiple, you would pick the record type that you want to use. And what this would do is it would allow you to import in the existing layout that you have in Salesforce today, and it would automatically convert that into a Visualforce page for you. Now, you may be asking, what's the benefit of having the exact same layout? And the answer is nothing. The benefit of having it converted to a Visualforce page is that this is a foundation. It's just a starting point. And now we can begin to convert and create this into the page that you actually want. But imagine if you have 100 or 200 fields on an object or on a view, it can be quite a tedious task to try and drag 200 fields onto a canvas. So importing in a layout can save you a tremendous amount of time when you're designing your pages. The next thing that we're going to do is quickly grab the account information at the top. Now, on the right-hand side, there are a series of properties that exist as we modify these different components. One of them is the columns property. I'm going to increase this to a 3 or a 4 as an example, and you now have a third and fourth column across the top of that account information section. You can either grab fields from the field bank on the left and drag them onto the canvas, or you can drag them from one column to another and rearrange them as you see fit. This is going to operate much like the page layout editor that exists in Salesforce today, except the end result is going to be you're creating a very rich and complex Visualforce page at the end of it. So there we go. We've modified. We now have 4 columns across the top. The next thing I'm going to do is select the account information section again, and on the right-hand side there is a color settings that I'm going to enable, and we're going to override the default color of the Salesforce tabs with different colors. We'll do a black and we'll do a red just so it's easy to spot when we deploy the page. The next thing that I want to do is I want to scroll down, and we have all of these related lists that exist on the page. Personally, I don't like having to scroll to the bottom of a page to find the related list. So what we're going to do is add in an interior tab to the page. We go to the component palette on the left. We have a large list of components that I'm not going to have time to cover today, but there are a tremendous amount here. And you can drag on the tab panel onto the canvas. And this is going to give you, I believe, up to 10 tabs that you can have in a given component. And we're just going to select tab number 1 and rename this to contact data. This is going to allow me to place the contact related list, and we simply drag it from bottom to top and drag it and drop it in. Now what this is going to ultimately allow us to do is to have the end user look at the top of the screen and they see all of the fields that they need to enter in or to quickly view, but they also have all of the related content right at the top. They don't have to dig around in the page to find exactly what they need. Now, the page that I'm going to be creating in the production environment needs to be view only. So what I'm going to do is I need to convert this to a view only page. Right now, most of the fields on a page are input only. Instead of starting from scratch, what I'm going to do is click Tools and Convert. And what this is going to do is give me a brand new Visualforce page, which I will call our webinar account page. And it's going to translate all of our input fields to output fields, display only, and it's going to turn our save button into an edit and delete button at the top. It kept all of the layout and the color changes the exact same, as you can see across the top. Nothing was lost. It simply converts it to a display only version of the page. This means you can design pages one time for the edit screen and easily convert them to a display only screen without any additional work. You simply give the view only screen a new title and deploy this page and you're good to go. One additional thing that I'd like to have for the contact is something that's not normally available to related list in Salesforce. So I select this table, and if you notice on the right hand side there's a large list of properties. Well, one of the properties is what we call a client side filter. So I'm going to enable the client side filter. Essentially what this does is well, let me use an example from Terra Sky's actual production account. We have a good relationship with Salesforce as a company. And at Salesforce, we know several hundred employees that we actively talk with on a regular basis for different things, whether that be HR, administration, partner relations, the sales teams, however you want to discuss that. Hundreds of people that we know at Salesforce. Sometimes it can be a bit difficult to find the individual we need to when we're looking at the Salesforce account page if you have literally 600 plus contacts at Salesforce. And so what this client-side filter allows you to do is it allows you to begin typing values into that search box, and it will dynamically filter out in this case, the contact list to only show you people that have matching values as to what you're typing in. And I'll show you a better example when we actually deploy the page. Tab number 2, we're going to have this as our opportunity information. So I'm going to rename this the opportunity data to stay consistent. And here we're going to grab the opportunity related list and drag it into this top section. Now, I mentioned earlier that the form that we had created, this form here, needs to be attached to the opportunity so that the user can click on the opportunity and then view this form as a quick reference. Well, I don't want it to be such that they can't open an opportunity, so we're going to leverage a detail panel. Now, the details panel you can drag onto the right-hand side of the page, and it's essentially going to allow me to have a panel that appears on the right as I click on a details button, and then can have any page that I want displayed here. So I'm going to change this, we'll say to a 600 by default. And as you can see, as I click the ellipsis, it's going to show me all of the different related lists that exist for this particular page. I'm going to find the opportunity, and it's going to load all of the different opportunities that I've got here. So here's my webinar opportunity form that I just created earlier. I click this and click OK. Now what that's going to do is assign the webinar opportunity form to this side panel whenever the user clicks on the details button that is next to the name column. So if you look at the opportunity related list, the first column is name. The column to the left of it is a details button that will appear. When they click that, a panel will open and it will show that form that we created on the right-hand side. So it creates a very interesting dynamic for the kinds of things that you can do with Salesforce when you can have multiple screens opened up, their different layouts, can really provide some additional functionality that you did not previously have. And then tab number 3, we're simply going to place in some related content in here. Let's say that we place the red banner section, the additional information in there, and we'll leave that as is. One other thing that we'd like to do, however, is since this is a display-only page, we would like to also enable inline editing. To do this, on the right-hand side of the page properties section, the very last one is called Enable Inline Editing. You simply check this box, and the user now has the capability of inline editing anything on the page. One additional thing that I would like to do, though, is Salesforce, when you inline edit something, the edit button goes away, and the user can then save a record. So at the top of the screen, we need to replicate that same functionality before we deploy this. To do that, we're going to scroll down to the buttons. We're going to retrieve the save button and place it onto the canvas. Now, on the right-hand side, there is a property that says display when inline editing. It's currently set to always display the save button. I don't want that. I want to only show the save button when the user is inline editing. And the same thing for the cancel button. I only want this displayed when they're editing the record. When they are not editing the record, I want the edit and delete button to appear. So I can change that from always to hide on edit, and that will replicate that same functionality that Salesforce has. Now that you're done designing your page, we can go ahead and click File and Deploy. It's going to ask again, Production or Sandbox, and click Deploy. Now, as a quick recap, what we've done is we've added inline editing to your Visualforce page. We've added 4 columns across the top. We have color-coordinated multiple sections inside of Salesforce. We've added several related lists to interior tabs on the page, one of which we are able to dynamically search through content, and the other one we have a detail panel which will overhaul the way you interact with that object. So all of this was done in less than 15 minutes. So this should give you a great understanding of how fast you're able to completely overhaul not just your account page, but really any location inside of Salesforce if you're willing to learn a platform like SkyVisualEditor where you can drastically enhance the speed at which you design and implement these custom changes you want. What I'm going to do next to wrap this up, and then we'll open it up for Q&A, is I'm going to take this page that we just created and we are going to assign it to a view inside of Salesforce so we can look at it as the default view. To do that, we go into Salesforce. We're in the setup area. We go to Customize on the left. We find our account and expand that, and then Buttons, Links, and Actions. This is where you assign Visualforce pages to different views inside of Salesforce. In my case, I created a page that was designed to override the view state of an account. So I click Edit next to View. We're going to override with a different Visualforce page that I just created. And so I find my webinar account page and click Save. Now this is going to allow me to look at the webinar account page that we just created as the default page anytime we're viewing an account. So let's test this out. We go to the accounts at the top. And I have a Visualforce page here, so we'll choose an account that I've recently used on the left, Gene Point. And here is the page that we have just created while we were in the webinar. Now you see the 4 columns across the top. Notice that the save and the cancel button are not present. That's because we're not inline editing anything. If we look at the interior tabs, we have in the first one, we have our contact information. And here's the search. So if I type in Edna as an example, it's going to begin dynamically filtering the contacts to only show me people with the word Edna in one of the columns of data. So it's going to search each of the different columns and figure out, does this text exist? So this allows me, as an example, to search for the term VP, and it will show me the VP of Technology and the VP of Sales. So it's a great way of being able to filter out content in your related list very quickly. The next one that we're going to show is the opportunity. Now, if you remember, I had created the details panel. So if I click the details button on the left, it's going to open that panel on the right-hand side with that form that we created. So as you can see, if I make that a bit bigger, we have the different fields that we filled out with all of the information that's appropriate for this particular opportunity. So if we had any of the product information filled out down at the bottom, which we did not in this example, you would be able to quickly look at the order form in a PDF format. So you literally can print out the document straight from this panel, or you can download it or email it, whatever you'd like to do. And when you're done looking at it, you simply close the panel and you can open up a different one if you'd like. So it allows you to, like I said, alter the way that you work with different objects inside of Salesforce. So we've got about 5 minutes left. I'm going to open this time up for Q&A. So let me go ahead and add this back in here. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them into the chat panel or the question panel, and we'll utilize the last 5 or 7 minutes or so to answer questions. If we don't have time to get to your questions, we can always email you directly and get those answers over to you. So thank you so much for your attention. If need be, our contact information is up on the screen. You can feel free to email us or call Jeremy if you have any questions about the product or platform in any way, and we can answer those. So at this time, we will begin fielding questions.